the anticipation, is it different each year, or is it kind of the same kind of level of excitement about a season starting?
It's both different and the same. The people are different, but the hopes, the expectation, the excitement of it is pretty similar, and it's been that way here now. This will be our 45th year, so it's covered a lot of ground.
45 covers a lot of ground. I mean, it's hard to believe 45 have gone by, isn't it?
For me. I start talking to these guys, and I tell them about so-and-so, and their eyes quickly glaze over. But if that guy walked through the door today, to me, he would be as fresh in my mind as the new guys are. It's just the way it is. Getting older, that's the way you are.
This team is a team that's still young, but has tasted success. So do you go into this season thinking, okay, now is the time to move to another level and be able to increase that success?
Well, we're a solid team. We proved that the last 2 years. We've been a playoff team the last couple years. But we aren't kidding ourselves about how easy it's going to be. We have a tough road to hoe: Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland. Cleveland's coming on. We know about Baltimore and Pittsburgh. These are good football teams, and at most in recent years we win half the time against them. Well, we got to beat them, and they got to beat us. It's a challenge for everybody. We look forward to it, but I'm not going to get out my crystal ball and start predicting great things. We have to earn those things.
You guys are willing to put yourself before the HBO cameras again. Does that, I would think a team has to be confident of itself and its leaders in order to do that sort of thing.
You find it an interesting experience when you're at the receiving end of the cameras. It teaches you something, and what it teaches me is how professional these people are. They're good at what they do, and you begin to respect them as you're around them and watch them, and as they deal with you, and as they edit out what they collect and come up with something seemingly out of a mishmash of nothing. And it's quite a interesting experience, and I think it's good for the players to watch this, to see this. They aren't going to have this experience probably ever again, and that's one of the good things. At the end of the day, we'll give them all a tape. They'll have it for the future. They can sit down with grandson and watch it, and that'll be good too.
Do you worry about what you say? About, there was a thing a few years ago where you were talking about moving a guy to a tight end and that stuff, and a lot of people snickered at that sort of thing. Do you worry about how you're projected on that?
Well, you're perceived the way it's drawn by others. That one was a funny event. I remember it because I was ridiculed for suggesting that we look at this guy. He was a defensive end, and why not look at him as a tight end, because we were thin there all of a sudden because of injuries. I had talked to Marvin about that at the breakfast table earlier. He had brought it up. I was merely regurgitating his idea, but I was suddenly accused of interfering and doing all sorts of things. And yeah, I marveled at how that had a life of its own. So that is something you can learn from too. But that doesn't mean it isn't a good experience. It is a good experience.
It seems like different teams are tinkering with ways to make the fan experience better for the fans that come here or come to the stadiums rather than sit at home and watch on their big screens. What does football have to do? Do you have to do anything different to get the fans in the stands again?
Well, they're in the fans are in the stands. There's been very little fall off. I think what you have to do is have a winning football team, and that brings them in. They like that. That's what they want, and I don't blame them. Some of this other stuff that we're doing to hype the product, if you will, to show it in a different light, is an ongoing debate. Do we need cameras in the locker room? Well, the league voted to have cameras in the locker room with a myriad of restraints. I was one of those in there arguing for the good old days. Do we really need this? Isn't this a private preserve? Don't they have the right to be alone sometime? And what are they going to find out anyway? Not so very much. I think this will play out as we experiment with different things. Some of them will work better than others. Some will not work at all. And we're just in a time of change. This is good for the National Football League. We try these different things. I don't always agree with what we try, but I do agree with the fact that we do try things, and the league evolves. It keeps us at the cutting edge, if you will. And overall, I think it's the way to go.
Do you think the game is in any way endangered because of the whole concussion issue and trying to deal with that? Being able to play the game the way we would like it played and have it still safe?
Well, you're talking to one of thousands that have been concussed, if you will. I've had my share of concussions, and I can still count up to 10. There are 5 million people plus in this country who have some form of dementia. I'm an old guy. I can say this kind of thing. I have friends who have gotten there. Most of them are not guys who played football, let alone NFL football. The incidence of health amongst NFL players, retired players, is superior to the norm. It is not inferior to. They have better heart condition, for example. They live longer, for example. And the one area that was a little bit off, but not so much as to be statistically relevant, it was just a tiny differential, was in the dementia area. This is not proven at all. And yet here we are besieged by it, both in the PR realm and in the courts now. And yet no one really knows for sure what concussions mean. We're playing it safe. We're doing everything we can think of in this league to protect our players that have concussions. We're changing rules. We're adding expert doctors. We're going slower with return to action, even when probably under the old standards we wouldn't have had a second thought about it. And this is good, and it will, like a lot of these things, as time goes on, resolve. People will learn. They will find out more. But right now it's in a stage of uncertainty and contention. And it is just one of the things that we have to deal with.